I love making these videos at the start of every month because they put me in a really excited headspace for the month ahead. And honestly, this is one of the best TBRs that I have had going into the month ahead. I am so excited for every single book on this list. I've chosen 10, 8 are books that I bought and 2 are review copies, and the vibes are immaculate. I'm also extra excited because we're entering autumn, my favorite season. It's spooky season. I've got my What We Do in the Shadows shirt on, which actually was a hand-me-down from my friend Tay when she moved back to Korea. Thank you, Tay. I love this shirt. My hair is a lot... I'm feeling good. I'm feeling witchy and spooky. But I'm not in much of a horror mood, and I am a mood reader. If I read something that is outside of my mood at any given time, I just don't enjoy it. But while I'm not in a horror mood, there is one horror novel coming out this month that I'm about to talk about first, which I'm very, very excited for. And almost all the other books on this list have a darkness to them. They're all fantasy novels, but they are dark academia or grimdark fantasy, and they've all got that autumn vibe that I am just so happy is finally here. I love autumn so much. So let's crack on. I've got 10 incredible books to look forward to and read in September. The first of these books, as I said, is a review copy for the new Eric LaRocca novel. Anyone who's been around my channel for a long time will know that Eric LaRocca is one of my favorite authors in the whole wide world. They even blurbed my book, and I will always be grateful to Eric for that. Eric was the first person to read my book, and that gives me tingles every time I think about it because Eric LaRocca is such a rising star in the world of horror fiction. And this is We Are Always Tender with Our Dead. As you can see, it's got this little sash around it because this is a review copy that came in a gorgeous package. It even came with this lovely pin badge, and I'm trying to decide what to put this on. It says, "Welcome to Burnt Sparrow." So the book is set in a place called Burnt Sparrow, and it's the first in a trilogy, the Burnt Sparrow trilogy. I kind of don't want to take this sash off yet because it looks so lovely. It says, "You are entering the town of Burnt Sparrow, proceed with caution." The package that I received also came with a bookmark and a bunch of black feathers. Okay, fine, I'll take the sash off. Wasn't that big a deal. The lives of those residing in the isolated town of Burnt Sparrow, New Hampshire are forever altered after 3 faceless entities arrive on Christmas morning to perform a brutal act of violence. A senseless tragedy that can never be undone. While the townspeople grieve their losses and grapple with the aftermath of the attack, a young teenage boy named Rupert Cromwell is forced to confront the painful realities of his family situation. Once the relationships become intertwined and more carnage ensues as a result of the massacre, the town residents quickly learn that true retribution is futile, cruelty is earned, and certain thresholds must never be crossed no matter what. Exciting. Very exciting. All right, come here, sash. I'm putting the sash back on. There you go. You know when you watch like a late night talk show and celebrities come out, whether they be actors, musicians, writers, whatever, and they're usually very composed, almost as if they expect to be there. I've always thought that if I was in that situation, I wouldn't know how to contain my excitement that I had made it to some great platform of fame. And I have proven that a few times by befriending some really cool, famous people through what I do. Like 2 years ago, I met Chelsea Manning for coffee in London. I don't think I've ever mentioned that before, but she's a fan of what I do, and it was amazing. I met Chelsea Manning. Yeah, it's no big deal. She's a friend, whatever. It's fine. And the other cool thing that happened to me recently is that Jodie Harsh reached out to me. She's also a fan of what I do. She's got a book coming out in September, and she sent me this box. It's got a little message. Willow, you had to be there, now you can be. As you know, I'm such a fan, and I can't wait for you to read. Big love, Jodie. Now, as you heard jangling around in the box, there was some really cool stuff in there. But the main thing is the book itself. You had to be there. This book is coming out at the end of September. Jodie is doing a tour around the UK, and this book is about the club scene in London in the early 2000s. A time when I was in high school, sixth form, university, and nightclubs were everything to so many people. I really like this little blurb at the back of the review copy that says, "A wild, joyful journey through naughty's clubland. You had to be there, and Jodie Harsh was. every single night. This is the defining book on the iconic decade of decadence before everything changed in London. Now, what else is in here? Oh yeah, there's a lollipop, Tic Tacs, a whistle with a multicolored string that is iconic, and a You Had to Be There shot glass. I love this stuff. And also posters, leaflets, ticket stubs, all to give you that vibe of Naughty's Clubland. This is so cool. Now, one book that you might have noticed in the thumbnail was this. My most anticipated novel of the entire year, Katabasis or Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. I saw online Kuang herself mention that it's not entirely clear how to pronounce it. She was saying Katabasis, and then some classicists that she talked to said it's Katabasis, and then her husband says that, but she's like, who cares? And I have to sit here and pretend that I'm excited to read this book when in actual fact I am 3/4 through. By the time this video goes out, I will be done. I'm gonna finish it after I filmed this. And I'm not gonna say a word about it. I'm gonna do a review very soon, probably the video after this one. And this is the new novel by R.F. Kuang, my favorite author after Kazuo Ishiguro. I can never decide between the two, and I say that every time. Katabasis is a dark academia novel. It is a romantasy novel, kind of. And so if you're a fan of Babel, you'll be right at home here. I'm not going to say any more. It's about two people who go to hell, but they go to hell to bring back their mentor. They're both doing a PhD. Their mentor has died. They need him in order to finish their PhD. They don't really get along with each other, so there's the enemies to lovers situation. That's it. That's all in the blurb. That's all in the marketing. I'm not going to say a word. But also on the back, there is a quote, which is from really early on in the book. This is like chapter 1, chapter 2. And it just says this, and it makes me laugh every time I read it. I'm going to do it in a man voice because it's a man who says it. Alice Law, you naughty girl. You're trying to go to hell. Sounds so weird. Anyway, I'm not gonna say any more. You can't make me. I'm putting it down now. Oh, except that I got the copy with the sprayed edges and mine came with this tote bag that says "To Hell with Love," which is a really clever little pun. Okay, moving on. Since Katabasis is putting me into a dark academia mood, I thought, hey, there's this. This is The Incandescent by Emily Tesh. It's her second novel and it came out like 2 months ago. And I picked it up immediately. I was really excited and I bounced off of it really quickly. I DNF'd it after a few dozen pages because I just wasn't in the mood for it. And then I thought, hey, Katabasis comes out soon. Why don't I read both of them when autumn comes along and it'll feel right. That autumn dark academia time. Well, I think past me was right because I'm excited to read this next. After I'm done with Katabasis, I'm going to jump into this and do a video on dark academia because I haven't done one in a good while. What I like about The Incandescent right from the beginning is the fact that this is a dark academia from the perspective of a teacher who's in her 30s, rather than it being a bunch of university students who are morally questionable or outright terrible, either just doing terrible things or doing some forbidden magic. This is about dark magic, but from the perspective of a teacher. And as someone who used to be a teacher and taught kids of this age, well, when I started reading it, it kind of took me back to the darkest, most awful time in my life because I hated being a teacher. But it also made me feel like I understood the character on a deeper level right from page 1 because I could easily imagine myself in her shoes, although obviously this is a magic boarding school where they teach dark magic. And yeah, I'm now finally very excited to read this book. Like I said, I bounced off of it super quick, but this time I'm gonna see it through. And I didn't bounce off it because I didn't like it, the mood wasn't there. The mood is there now. And since I'm in more of a fantasy mood than a horror mood right now, I thought, hey, T. Kingfisher, the author who does both so brilliantly. All of her fantasy has a dark edge to it. There is a coziness, but also just a hint of bleakness. And this is, well, probably not her newest book at this point because she puts out like 2 books a year. But this book came out recently. The paperback just hit and I picked it up when I saw it in Waterstones. It's got these red sprayed edges, which is fun, and it's called A Sorceress Comes to Call. I'm sure a lot of people are going to run to the comments to tell me this is great because I know a few of my viewers have talked about it already. I've seen it around. I've heard a lot of whispers about it. And I love T. Kingfisher. She is one of my absolute favorite authors. And this is what the blurb says. It sounds like a very dark and twisted fairy tale. Cordelia knows her mother is unusual. Their house doesn't have any doors between rooms. There are no secrets in this house. Cordelia isn't allowed to have a single friend. The only time she feels truly free is on her daily rides with her mother's beautiful white horse, Falada. Like Hans Falada. He was a great German writer. No, I have a funny story about that. I don't know if I've told this story before. If I have, I'm sorry. I used to write freelance for this book review website that I won't name. And they had this feature where when you'd finished your review, you had to compare it to a few other books so people knew where they stood. A for fans of situation. And I just named like All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr and something else, and I mentioned Hans Fallada, who was a German author writing through World War II, and his books are some of the best things literally ever. They are some of the great works of the canon of 20th century fiction. And so obviously I mentioned Hans Fallada, and my editor emailed me saying, I don't know who that is, and I consider myself very well read. And if I don't know who that is, then our readers won't know who that is. And I was like, one, don't patronize your readers. You don't know that. And two, the fact that you don't know who Hans Fallada is really feels like a you problem. I didn't actually say either of those things. I just switched it out for something shit like The Tattooist of Auschwitz, and she was happy with that. Anyway, I don't write for them anymore. But more than a few quirks set her mother apart. Other parents can't force their daughters to be silent and motionless, obedient for hours or days on end. Other mothers aren't Sorceress. After a suspicious death in their small town, Cordelia's mother insists they flee in the middle of the night, leaving behind all Cordelia has ever known. They arrive at the remote country manor of a wealthy older man, the Squire, and his unwed sister, Hester. Cordelia's mother intends to lure the Squire into marriage. Cordelia knows this can only be bad news for the bumbling gentleman and his kind, intelligent sister. Hester sees the way Cordelia shrinks away from her mother, how the young girl sits eerily still at dinner every night. She knows that to save her brother from bewitchment and to rescue the terrified Cordelia, she will have to face down a wicked witch of the worst kind. That is my phone's ringing. Where is it? That is a really long blurb. Too long. That was way too long. Still excited for the book though. Now, here's something funny and kind of dumb. I picked up both of these Christopher Buehlman books separately by accident. Let me explain. I was browsing the Waterstones website for new releases and, you know, whatever people were talking about, right? I wanted some new, fun fantasy stuff to check out. And I saw this. The Black Tongue Thief, and I thought, hey, this looks good. I'll keep an eye on it. And then a few weeks ago, I was in Newcastle visiting my friend Tom. We went into a Waterstones, I saw this, and I was like, oh, hey, that's that book I was going to check out. Might as well grab it while I'm here. I've heard good things about The Black Tongue Thief. I don't know who this author is. I don't know anything about him or the book, but people are singing its praises. So yeah, this sounds good. I'll check this out. So I put that book on my TBR and just kind of moved on with my life. A week later, I'm in Edinburgh to see some of my friends who are putting on fringe shows. I go into Blackwell's and I see this and I think, oh, hey, Christopher Buehlman, if that's how you pronounce it. He's the guy who self-published that book Between Two Fires a few years ago that everybody loves. That grimdark historical fantasy thing. Yeah, that book looks really good. I should really check that out. Well, while I'm here, I guess I'll pick this up. This must be his newest thing. Sounds great, sounds like fun. So I don't know why, when I saw his name here, I recognized it, and when I saw it here, I didn't. And I picked these two books up for different reasons, and this one is a prequel to this one. This is the first in a trilogy, and this is a standalone prequel to that trilogy. I think I'm getting that right. I accidentally bought both. Like, it's not like I accidentally bought two copies of the same book. I've never done that. Leave a comment if you have. I'm sure it'll happen to me at some point. But to accidentally do this, it was a real kind of brain fart moment. Whatever the case, I'm going to read them. If you've read these, can you tell me which one I'm supposed to read first? Just because this is a prequel doesn't mean I should read it first. You know, it might make more sense to read this and then read this to like fill in gaps in the lore and the history. I don't know. Tell me what I should read first. Either way, I'm going to try and read at least one of them this month. And in the spirit of grim, dark, historical fantasy for spooky season, we have this and this behind me. This is Was Willem by M.R. Carey. I picked this book up as well a few weeks ago, and again, I wasn't in the mood for it, but I am such a massive fan of M.R. Carey. He is a living legend in the world of comic books. His series, The Unwritten, is one of the best, smartest, most thought-provoking but also entertaining comic books you'll ever read in your entire life. If you haven't read The Unwritten, please track it down, read it. It's so clever. When he writes comics, he writes under the name Mike Carey, and when he writes novels, he's M.R. Carey. And as M.R. Carey, his most famous work is The Girl with All the Gifts, which is somewhere behind me. That book has sold like 1 million copies. It was turned into a film that I haven't seen, and it's really good. He's also written a sci-fi duology. Now, I received a review copy of the first half of that duology. I did a review of it like 2 or 3 years ago, and then I never got around to reading the second half. And now, obviously, I don't remember the first one. And they're like 1,000 pages each. But this is short. This is like 200-300 pages long, and it's a work of grimdark historical fantasy. Think Arthurian legend, but even darker and stranger. At least that's how the blurb makes it seem. And finally, this is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I mentioned this before after I first bought it and then didn't read it. I actually put it somewhere else. It hasn't been on my TBR. It's been like tucked away somewhere by accident, so I did forget about it because I have ADHD. But I picked this up when I visited my parents a few months ago. My hometown was a really dull place to grow up, and now it has this beautiful independent bookshop. Like, it's really gorgeous. And so I picked this up while I was there, and it's signed. Now, after R.F. Kuang and Robin Hobb, Joe Abercrombie is one of my absolute favorite fantasy authors, and this is a standalone, historical, grimdark fantasy novel. I am very excited. I think I'm gonna probably read this very early on. I'm gonna finish Katabasis, I'm gonna read The Incandescent, and then I'll probably read this. I'm finally ready. Now, I've heard mixed things. A lot of critics, a lot of booktubers have said that it's fine. It's not his best work, it's only okay. But as someone who really loves grimdark fantasy, and as someone who adores historical fantasy, and historical fiction in general, this really feels like it was made for me. I was counting down the days to its release, and I still haven't read it, which is kind of hilarious. I have an X-Men comic that I did that with as well. Recently, Gail Simone started writing X-Men, and I was going into my local comic shop like every weekend, asking if Gail Simone's X-Men was out yet in trade paperback. And my friend who works there kept saying, no, it's coming soon. It's coming in May. Well, it's September now. I still haven't read it. I was so excited for it. I picked it up. I skipped all the way home. And then I forgot to read it. And now it's September. And I did the same thing with this, which also I think came out in May. What the hell was I doing in May? So that's what I'm gonna read in September, probably. I have 2 really cool review copies and 8 dark fantasy, dark academia things that I've bought to jump into. And since we're now in spooky season, it's a really good time for you to read my book. This is Managing and Other Lies, a collection of queer horror stories. As I said, this was blurbed by Eric LaRocca. And what did they say? Inventive and refreshingly satisfying. The stories collected here in Managing and Other Lies are like literary splinters with such dangerous barbs that you might worry they will never be wrenched out from underneath your skin. Eric LaRocca, author of Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. Eric liked it. And that's because it's really good. So if you haven't bought and read a copy of my book yet, there are links in the description underneath the like button. Click it on your way down and pick up a copy of my book and enjoy it during spooky season. Thank you. And if you enjoyed this, you can support me on Patreon and subscribe for books. Bitch.